Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Relatable Radio Hour with me, Dr. Green. Thank you so very much for joining. I am really ecstatic about today's guest. We have been kind of corresponding for quite some time on LinkedIn, and he's doing some amazing things. I'm really excited to share very soon. So I'm excited to have the conversation with him and just to kind of know more about him. I think this is a perfect platform for what he is doing, and it's really in line to what we've been talking about over the few years, having the show about just, being able to have a better mindset and to have a better perspective of how to move forward and getting yourself prepared with the most opportunities to better yourself and to get yourself in a better perspective, a positive perspective. And so, with no further ado, I'd like to introduce to you all Jessie Dayton. Mr. Dayton, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Dr. Green. I'm doing fantastic.
I'm
I'm
so
excited
glad
to
to
be
hear
on
it.
your podcast, sir. I'm excited.
Glad to have you here, really. I mean, we have been corresponding for quite some time, probably about the last 2 years. We've been just
Yes,
kind of
sir.
corresponding.
Yes, sir.
And I've been following what you've been doing. But now this is an opportunity for you to share, what you've been doing on a larger basis. But before you get into all the goodies, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's brought you here today.
Okay, sir. Well, first and foremost, once again, thank you for allowing me to come on your platform. I appreciate it. I know somebody who knows you and they speak so highly of you, and it's just a great opportunity for me to be on here. So let me thank you for that
No
first and
problem.
foremost.
No.
Um, and I'm going to be sort of blunt with my background because I want to know people where I come from. So I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, born and raised. My father's from Mississippi. So he's from a small town in Mississippi. He was born in 1924. I was born in 1978. My dad had kids from the time he was 15 to the time he was 65. So he had 50 years worth of children.
Wow.
So I have 27 brothers and sisters that I actually know of. And like I said, to be real blunt, my dad actually has more kids, but he doesn't claim the ones where the mother does is mad at him or has an issue
Okay.
with them. I'm
Hmm.
just yeah, I'm being blunt because I want people to understand where I come from, because they'll see that what I talk about in the future, that okay, well, this young man did come from nothing into something.
Hmm.
So, like I said, born and raised in Portland, I came up below the poverty line. My mother was a prostitute. She was on heroin. She was on cocaine. We did not have hot water in most of the apartments we lived in. I had to boil hot water on the stove and pour it in the bathtub to take a bath. I didn't eat my first lunch until I got to school, public school. I lived in 7 different apartments, just from first to fifth grade. Um, I came up pretty tough. I came up around a lot of drugs, a lot of gangs, a lot of violence. And I wanted to get out of that area. My mother OD'd on heroin when I was 12. I was put into a couple foster homes um, for about a year and a half. And just a quick note on that, they put me in a foster home for young men who had committed felonies already, and I was only 13, and I hadn't committed any felonies, so it was a crazy experience. And I talked to my social worker, and I asked her, when are you going to find me a family to adopt me? And she was like, well, Jesse, we're looking for a black family to adopt you. And I was like, woman, I'm half white. Find me. It doesn't really matter. Find me a family
Hmm.
to adopt me. These foster
Hmm.
homes are crazy. So 2 weeks later, um, she took me to a couple families, and I got to, visit with them for a couple days. And eventually, I chose a family, and I got adopted when I was 13. Um, that family gave me a good foundation on what God is, on what normal life is. It was a middle income, family. Father worked, mother worked. They had biological kids. They gave me a great experience. I went from never celebrating a birthday in my life, never having a Christmas in my life, to celebrating my first birthday and my first Christmas with them. Um, my adopted mother homeschooled kids. She homeschooled her biological kids. And so she homeschooled me. I did high school in 2.5 years. I didn't take any summer breaks. I didn't take any winter breaks. Got my GED when I was 16. I asked her to find me a college as far away from Portland, Oregon as you possibly could, because I sort of wanted to, get away from the memories.
Hmm.
And so she found me a small college in Pensacola, Pensacola Christian College. I was 16 years old in college with a GED. Loved it, but it really wasn't for me at the time. Um, I was in the Pensacola Mall and I walked past the Army recruiter and I sort of did a double take, like, maybe I can get out of the United States if I join the
Hmm.
Army.
Hmm.
Still trying to flee my background and a lot of the pain that I was sort of dealing with from my childhood. So I joined the Army. My first duty station was Germany. And I don't know how much of my background I should say. Uh, I spent 5 years in the Army. I got an associate's degree, but because I was in Germany when I was looking for a bachelor's, I wanted to do something in health, and they didn't really have those opportunities in Germany. So I got a certification as an integrative medicine consultant. So I can actually, I can show you how to integrate different forms of complementary and alternative medicines along with the modern medicine that you're getting from a doctor. My
Hmm.
expertise is in mind body medicine or mind body exercise. So I teach people things like progressive muscle relaxation, which actually teaches you how to put your body in the sleeping state while you're still awake, and it really facilitates healing. I teach people guided imagery and visualization exercises, which are phenomenal for soldiers who have PTSD because it helps wean them off of the opiates that they're taking. I teach people some of the most simplest forms of meditation. I also have a certification as a natural nutritionist. What I did is I got 7 different certifications because there was no degree I can get over in Germany at the
Hmm.
time. I've written 2 books. I have a book called the Self-Responsibility Guidebook. I have another book called Spirituality, the Knowledge of God's Presence in the Present. I wrote that book in 2021. I wrote my first book in 2018. Um, I am a happy father of 2 kids in their 20s. Thank goodness. Oh my goodness, thank goodness they're in their 20s. um, I'm a soccer coach. I'm a husband of 20, well, if my wife's going to watch this, 27 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's basically a background on me.
Wow. I mean, that's quite extensive. What I'm kind of just really gravitating towards is that even in the midst of having, such a tough, upbringing in some instances, you still managed to like get out of all of that and see a bigger picture for yourself.
Yes.
Um, where was the foundation laid to have that perspective as a person? I'm just curious.
Uh, I would have to say that what I learned as I got older, especially as I got into the military, I learned, and everybody's heard this before, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But there's a
Hmm.
second part of that. It's not that just what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You have to find the lessons in whatever you went through, no matter how hard it was. And I'll give you a very hard example. Like I said, I'm going to be blunt because we're
Hmm.
all adults.
I love it.
I've taught about 10,000 classes, and I'm not trying to promote or boast. I've taught about 10,000 classes over the past 24 years. I work for the US military. I'm a fitness, nutrition, and wellness coordinator for a very large base in Germany. And the majority of those classes I taught for the government. And out of those 10,000 classes, I would have to say 70 to 80% of the clients or customers in those classes were women. And I'm telling you why you have to find the learning lesson in whatever you experience, no matter how bad it is. So I asked the Lord several times, I asked God several times, why did I go through what I went through? Why did I have to see my mother have sex with several hundred men from the time I was 2 years old up until she OD'd? Why did I get molested? Why did all of these sexual things happen to me at such a young age? And the Lord told me, well, son, because I'm going to send you thousands of women to teach, and I want you to have control over yourself. I don't want your sex drive to be the motivator behind the classes that you give. I want to be
Hmm.
able to bring women to you, and I want you to be able to keep your eyes in their eyes and allow me to be a vessel through you. So you can give them what they need at that time, and you're not thinking about trying to come on to them or get into their pants. I told you I'm gonna be blunt. So and once the Lord told me that, like, I literally cried for 2 days. It was an epiphany. And you know what it did for me, Dr. Green? Like, it made everything okay. I was able to forgive all of the horrific things that I dealt with when it came to sexuality at a young age, because I had already been teaching classes when he gave me that epiphany. And I was, and I'd have people in my, young men that I work with in a military facility. Jesse, I don't know how you do that, man. You got like 20 people in a class, and some of those women are just absolutely gorgeous. How do you stop? How do you not approach them?
Right.
And it was just because what I went through as a child, I never wanted to abuse a woman. I
Hmm.
never wanted to misuse a woman. I never wanted to hurt a woman as I saw a woman, be hurt as a child. So that was my life lesson when it came to being molested, seeing my mom, have all those sexual experiences. It didn't kill me. It made me stronger. The life lesson in that was, just because you were abused doesn't mean you should abuse. And you already
Mm.
know, Dr. Green, a lot of us men have issues. Porn is the number one thing on the
Mm.
internet. The vast majority of us do not know how to control what we have downstairs. And part of life is to master your sexual drive. There's something called sexual discipline. We don't even put those two words together at times. But my lower self is not supposed to tell me when I have sex. I'm supposed to tell my lower self when I
That's
have
right.
sex.
Right.
That's the whole point of life,
Right.
is to master that. Just like our stomach. Your stomach doesn't tell you when to eat. You tell your stomach when you're going to eat.
That's right.
So that horrific experience I had, it gave me that life lesson to not abuse. I call them God's daughters. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
I've dealt with a lot of men over the past years, a lot of men I've mentored and helped, and they were into several women, I would ask them, "Do you have a daughter?" You have to think about, do you want somebody to do to your daughter what you're
Right.
doing to these young ladies?
Right.
You
Right.
got to think
Right.
about that. And then I'll give them that Bible verse where it says, and it's I'm trying to remember it. The sins of the father will fall on the child. It's not the sins of the mother and father, it's the sins of the father who will
Mm.
fall on the child. Why? Because the father is the covering.
Right.
So that's just a you asked me, what gave me that drive and
Hmm.
that energy. When I was 26, also, I met a mentor, a man that helped change my life. He introduced me to God in a way I never knew God. Um, and it helped me really build a strong bond with God. I also became a Freemason in 1999, and I didn't really understand what I joined until 2006, 7 years later,
Hmm.
um, when I met him. And a lot of people say things about Freemasonry, but Prince Hall affiliated Masonry is a little bit different than mainstream Masonry. Uh, Not different when it comes to the fraternity, but obviously we're not as large scale.
Right.
We're
Hmm.
more sort of homegrown. We stick more to the ritual. And what people don't understand about Freemasonry is that the first great light in Masonry is the Holy Bible. And Masonry teaches you how to go from a rough ashlar to a perfect ashlar. It teaches you how to sacrifice your will to do God's will. It teaches you how to perfect yourself. It teaches you how to subdue your passions, circumscribe your desires. And I'm not sitting here trying to advertise Masonry. I'm just telling you that it really helped me become a better
Hmm.
man, regardless of what anybody else thinks about it, because it's really all about your relationship with God. It's
Hmm.
really not what you see in a group. It's about you becoming a better man and becoming a vessel, of God.
Hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Meeting my mentor in 2006, becoming a Mason, learning those things, adopting the Bible like I had never done before, reading it, scouring it, memorizing verses, trying to apply it, I'm also a priest, so I've been ordained. I'm an ordained priest.
Wow.
Those things grounded me and helped me forgive my past. And then I used the same things I teach. I use meditation. I use progressive muscle relaxation. I used guided imagery to really help me learn how to forgive those things of my past, to deal with them, to put them in perspective, and to find the learning lessons behind them.
That's
I hope I'm
amazing.
not over talking. I'm sorry.
No, I think the more you're talking, the more we are able to really truly gauge all that you have experienced and what has led you to where you are right now. I know a lot of people probably just as amazed as I am just hearing, you just speak about your life and your journey. Um, and you mentioned, going into a foster home and, receiving those things that you didn't, receive when you were, in your other spaces.
Yes, sir.
Um, how was that world as it relates to you growing more and learning more about yourself, and then segueing to this off and on college experience that you faced? How was that kind of matriculation from that point to the college age,
It was
Jesse?
a shock, Dr. Green. It was a complete, total shock. I came up in Northeast Portland, and a lot of people
Hmm.
say they don't know about Portland, but any city in our country with a major league sports team has an entire uh, district that is impoverished, below the poverty line, low income. And I came up in the worst part of Portland. um, I came up around, I'm half black, half white. I came up around all the black side of my family. I truly believe I was blessed because my mother was on so many drugs and doing so many things. Like she never hugged me, she never kissed me, she never told me, hey, come in. She never gave me motherly things. So my sisters, who are 20, 30 years older than me and had kids my age or older, they gave me the love that I needed, at that age. Even though some of them were on drugs, they weren't as hard off as my mother, but they still were at a place where, they could give me that love. They can give me some nurturing. And it was a very difficult, my mother ODing, me going to foster homes, and then me going into that adopted home because I came up so impoverished. I never lived in more than a two-bedroom apartment, and every apartment we lived in had 10 or more people in it.
Wow.
It was crazy. Um, everybody was on food stamps. So my sisters would get food stamps at the beginning of the month. And then 7 days later, all the food from the food stamps was gone. So, we used to literally fry government cheese that used to come in those blocks. We would fry it in
Hmm.
a pan. We would have bags of potatoes. So, we would always have French fries cooked in the same Crisco grease. It was for 3.5 weeks out of the month, we didn't have any food. And when you're dealing with adults on drugs, they're not really worried about if you're eating or not. And there were times during the summer, Dr. Green, if the government didn't have those, there's parks where they have those summer camps where they give you bag lunches. There was times that if they didn't have those, we wouldn't eat. Like I
Wow.
remember eating blackberries and apples and cherries off trees, and that was all I ate all day. And I'm
Wow.
saying that so I can show you, you asked me the shock from going from here to there. So that's how I never owned a toothbrush. My wife can't stand it when I tell people that. I didn't own a toothbrush until I went to a foster home.
Hmm.
Um, and so I got adopted. I went from a full black. The only person I knew on the white side of my family was my mother. Her parents, her dad was a doctor, but he disowned her because she was with a black man. 10 years prior to me being born, she had two other kids, but she went to jail. So her first two biological kids were taken from her. And so her family disowned her. Um, and so I never even got a chance to meet my biological parents. So I got adopted. I went from that surrounding to a strict Christian conservative, middle class, white family. And you want to talk about a shock? I'll give you a good story, Doc. I was visiting them and I was 13. We're in the backyard. They had a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And it was amazing that we were in their house in their backyard, and we there was a swing out there. So I was on the swing, and I'm not going to say the words I was saying, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, this swing is the MFNest funnest swing in the MFNest planet."
Right.
And they were looking at me like, and their oldest daughter was like, "Oh my gosh, you have such a bad, you know." I didn't
Hmm.
know what she was talking about. It was just part of my lingo. That was just
Right.
sort of how I spoke.
Right.
And so there was a shock. And then Dr. Green, the reason why I chose this family, my adopted mother and I, for the 3 days I was there, we went shopping to Safeway. It's a grocery store in the Northwest. We had two carts full of groceries. And when we got up to the cashier, she paid with a checkbook. In my mind right there, I was like, this is the family I'm staying with. And
That's
I
right.
made that decision based on the fact that she just bought a lot of groceries and she paid with the checkbook, you know. My first Christmas, I cried more than anything. I could like when we came downstairs and I had a pile of gifts. And for the first 12 years of my life, I watched Christmas on TV.
Hmm.
I went to a public school that was right in the middle, the border between low income and middle. And so kids talked about it at school all the time, what they got for Christmas. I literally never celebrated a Christmas before I was adopted.
Hmm.
So that was a very, very emotional, uh, because it was something that I always wanted. Obviously, you know, a kid, you
Right.
want to celebrate Christmas. And
Right.
then my first birthday, I cried over and over. You know, it was a lot of tears. Um, they were very strict. You could not say damn. You could not say dang because it sounded too much like damn.
Wow.
Um, that was where I was introduced to the church, though. And I used to love church. It was one of the most beautiful experience because God has blessed me to be able to feel his spirit.
Hmm.
Uh, and that caveats into something that I should tell you. I was 7 years old. My mother used to drop me off at a woman's house named Granny. And this was a beautiful old woman. She would take all of the drug addicted children that the parents would come drop off, and they would either go do their drugs or go prostitute or do what they did. And Granny used to take us to church. And I remember being in a Baptist church right there in Northeast Portland when I was 7 years old, Dr. Green. And I was so moved by the service. At the end of the service, the pastor called for anybody who wanted to be saved. And I was like, ah, me,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know. And so I went down there in the front of the church. You know, he prayed for me. I was baptized. And ever since then, and I've really never told this story before, I was filled with the Holy Spirit. And when I went back home, and there was times where I'd be in the house and my mother would be shooting heroin over here, and there's three Crips outside the door that just beat somebody up, no
Hmm.
food in there, and I would just feel the Holy Spirit come over me. And it was just God telling me, "Hey, little Jessie, I got you. I love you." And I didn't even realize what that was until I was in my 20s. And then, you know, I began to get more back into the Bible and back into the church. And then I began to experience the Holy Spirit, you know, that beautiful, warm,
Hmm.
tingling, powerful sensation that comes over you. I didn't, that's when I learned that, oh my goodness, I was feeling this when I was a child. So yeah, I hope that sort of answered the question. It was a big difference, Doc. I
For
didn't talk
sure.
about the college, but
But I mean, it sounds like God's been a huge influence on your life, and then just giving you opportunities to learn and grow through Him and trusting in Him. Sounds like a big part of it too, that you really weren't really aware of, but that's what
yes,
kind
sir.
of was developing the entire time.
Yes, sir. Exactly. I did not know that I was in the furnace and that every
Mm-hmm.
time, you know, that gold gets put in the furnace, it becomes more
Mm-hmm.
refined.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you know how the Lord is. He's got to break you down before he uses you. He's got to
Right.
completely subdue your ego. He's got to, you know, clean you and purify you so he can use you. And it's always been my want to be a vessel. I because I went through so much evil and so much negativity that I've always wanted to avoid evil and to help people become the best version of themselves any way possible. That's what drove me in to fitness after I got out the army. I was like, okay, I want let me be a personal trainer. Then I realized, okay, Jesse, you can help people get in shape, but they're asking you what to eat. So then I went and I got a natural nutritional consultation. And I was like, okay, now I can help people train and then help them eat. And now they're starting to tell me about their mental issues and their
Mm.
emotional issues. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I help them? So I researched. So that's when I got my integrative medicine consultation certification, because that taught me mind body exercise and how to show people different mental empowerment exercises and how to help them build emotional intelligence. And then that was great. And then I had people asking me to help bring them to the Lord. And I'm like, okay, well, where do I go from here?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
let me let me go into the church and let me find out what I have to do in order for me to properly be able to bring people to Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And the Lord led me to, to get ordained, and I got ordained. And ever since then, I've been helping as many as people as I can, not just spiritually, but all the way down to fitness, from fitness all the way to spiritual.
Hmm. Would you say that you had a natural experience in servanthood?
Absolutely, sir. There's a Bible verse that says, "You created my innermost being, which is our
Hmm.
spirit. You knit me together in my mother's womb." So, God is, we are his clay and he is the potter.
Right.
So he mixes us with whatever he wants to mix us with, so we can be used for his work, for his will, for his purpose. So, absolutely, he gave me that servanthood characteristic quality because I love serving. I experience such a happiness that, you can't describe the happiness that you feel when you actually help somebody become
Yeah.
better at something. Doesn't matter what it is, so yeah, he ingrained that in me, and I didn't go, that's something, not something I learned. It was just something that was there and has
Hmm.
always been there. Even Dr. Green, even to the point where I had to learn how to not teach people who didn't want to be taught.
Mm.
I had to learn to stop helping people who don't want to help. And the good
Yeah.
Lord told me, God helps those who help themselves, Jesse. Don't wear yourself thin, trying to
Hmm.
help somebody who doesn't really want to be helped. So I had to learn that at a young age, but I learned it and it saved me a lot of heartache.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think that's just glaring in my face, the fact that you just have such a servanthood to help and to inspire other people and getting them in the direction that they should be going into. Your experiences have definitely taught you all of that for yourself, for sure. So
Sure.
I can definitely see it being something that you try to do outwardly as well to other people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Um,
Absolutely.
so, you said you went to the army, you did the double take, you had that experience. Where was it in your life where you started to, kind of fine tune all of the things that you're working on now? Like where did that come into play?
That's a good question, Doc. I have, I have, you learn your entire life. You never stop learning.
No.
So I am like always feeding myself. I'm always so eager to learn. And every book I read, whenever I feel, whenever something pops out at me, I'll write it down, and then I'll record it on my my little notebook I have, and I'll just re-listen to it. And I've been like that since I was 19, 20 years old. I guess, Doc, the what started was when I was 19, almost 20, and I became a Mason. I became a Freemason. That was the first time that the military taught me discipline. Like, okay, you have to wash your clothes, Jesse. You have
Sure.
to pay bills. You have to, you have to do certain normal things and have self-discipline just to take care of your household type things and you as an individual. Um, but when it come to like the service, because I didn't really serve in the army. I only did 5 years
Okay.
and I was a very quiet soldier. I stayed to myself. I love my military brothers and sisters, but it just wasn't the lifestyle for me. It was a lot of, a lot of partying in the military. It's almost like being in a university. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I was 17 when I joined. I was the
Oh.
youngest person in Fort Jackson for basic training. So when I got to my regular duty station, I was still 17 and a half. My basic training and AIT, which is the advanced individual training where you learn what you're going to do in the Army, it was only 6 months. So when I got to my permanent party, I was still 17 and a half. So I was around full adults, at 17 and a half. And so I was sort of quiet. I kept to myself. It wasn't until my third year in the Army when I became a Mason and the Bible was reintroduced to me. And that's when I began to study because in becoming a Mason, you have to memorize verses. You
Mm-hmm.
have to memorize what we would call working tools. Like they're the same tools that a operative Mason would use, but we use them for
Mm-hmm.
these spiritual purposes to make you a better man. That's when I really got into studying the Bible, becoming more spiritually disciplined. And once I did that, I believe it allowed the Lord to finally begin to use me and begin to fine tune me. Because
Mm.
after that, I got out the military, and I was calm enough. And I'm not going, Dr. Green, I finally forgave my past. I wasn't until I was about 20 until I actually forgave my past. Um, just to caveat back real quick so you can understand what I mean. I grew up around all full, beautiful black people, no half ones like me in the 70s and 80s. So I
Mm-hmm.
was thoroughly abused. Like I was, the half white, the half caste, the
Mm-hmm.
Oreo. I was the one that was beat up all the time.
Mm.
So I didn't even know I was half white until I was like 10 or 11. I
Wow.
just thought I was like everybody else.
Yeah.
And then I got adopted by the all-white family. And then two of their oldest kids told me every day, you don't belong here. And I'm
Mm.
not talking bad about my adopted family. I'm just saying what it was.
Right.
They said you don't belong here. I didn't really feel like I belonged. I was picked on because I was the only half black one. So it was completely turned. And so I went into a shell until I was 19 or 20, and I had a strong dislike for everybody. I'm a Scorpio when it comes to zodiac, if you believe in it or not going to go there. So I'm very closeted, I'm very to myself. So it wasn't until I was about 20 till I got into masonry and beautiful Prince Hall affiliated masonry, which is black Freemasonry, and not trying to give a history on it, but they wouldn't allow us to have a lodge in the 1700s, so we had to create our own lodges. Um, and that allowed me to finally forgive. I had a strong dislike for black people and for white people, even though I felt of myself as black, but I was still just mad. I was mad
Yeah.
because I was so abused.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it wasn't until I was about 20 till I finally said, okay, Jesse, you got to forgive both sides. You're half this, half that. You got to forgive it. And becoming a Mason and being reintroduced to the Bible, it really started to help me forgive and forget those things and get into that servant mindset. And then getting out the army, which was very good for me because in the army you have 30,000 bosses. It's very stressful, even when I call it unnecessary stress. And getting out the army and getting getting into fitness, I began to really that service really began to develop in me, and that's just sort of what helped it bloom, blossom, and grow. And then to end this, when I turned 26, about 5 years after I got out the army, like I said, I met my first mentor, a man that was closer to me than my biological father, who I saw once a month, never had an adult conversation with my entire life, and closer to me than my adopted father. He became like my father. As a matter of fact, his wife told me, you're closer to him than his biological kids.
Wow.
And he was a very spiritual man. He taught me things that I didn't know about spirituality and about God. And there's a saying that says, the better the student you are, the better the teacher you will be. And I was his student I love that man to this day. He's, he changed my life. He guided and directed me sort of where I needed to go. And yeah, I'm forever grateful to him. Little short man from Trinidad and Tobago, very mean,
Wow.
but very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you were able to glean so much from them too.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes,
So,
sir.
I mean, this is such an amazing path. I mean, just something that, nobody would ever probably even think of when they see you or even talk to you. So I appreciate you sharing all that you've shared. I mean, you would eventually, like you said, go on to write your first book in 2018
Yes, sir.
and then wrote another one in 2021.
Yes, sir.
I would love for you to just kind of talk about the development of those two projects, and then let's just hear about what you're doing now in your realm, because my goodness, if people are not inspired to check out your work and what you're doing by now, then I don't know what else could, bring them to you, if I'm being honest with you.
Yes, sir. 2017, 2018, I believe it was, I finished my first book. And what led me to finish my first book is um, while I was in Germany working for the government, I decided to open my own wellness center
Hmm.
because from 2002 all the way to 2017, I, after 15 years of teaching fitness, nutrition, wellness, mind body exercise, natural nutrition, all these things, to service members, I had the expertise and the experience, to teach it in my own wellness center. So I actually opened up my own wellness center in Germany. What led me to write that first book is I wanted people to have curriculum when
Mm,
they came through my course. So I created a course. It was called a meditational fitness course. And it's basically almost like the course I teach now, but the course I teach now is even more perfected and refined because there's another 10 years behind it.
right.
So that's what led me to write my self-responsibility guidebook. I started it in 2016, and doctor, you've written a lot, or you wouldn't have that doctor title. So I know you know what it's like to sit down to an empty Word document
Oh yeah.
and you're looking at an empty Word
Oh,
page.
right.
And that's what I did, Doc. But the good Lord told me that regularity and consistency is the key. The good
Mhm.
Lord said, Jesse, just write. So I promised myself 30 minutes to an hour every day. I will just sit down and write. I'm not even going to have a plan or an agenda. So I sat down in 2016, Dr. Green, and I just began to write. And obviously, you're going to write about what you know and what you understand and your experience. So, Doc, after about 3 months, I had like 30 pages because I can talk all day. So I can write all day too. so, and then after that 3 months, I was like, okay, wow, let me put this over here. Oh, let me put this over here. Oh, well, this is a chapter in itself right here. Okay, so I did that for 12 months, Doc, and I had a book. I had a book and I didn't even really try. I just sat down to a Microsoft Word document and just began to write. And after that first 12 months, I had a rough book, obviously. And over the next 4 or 5 months, I refined it. I tried to put it in order as it should go. Um, and then I came up with my self responsibility guidebook. And it happened around at the same time I had this idea to create a wellness center, which was around mid 2018, close to 2019. And I opened up my wellness center in 2018. It was amazing. It was one of the best experiences because I put so much work and effort into it. In all humility, all glory and honor given to God. But I was seriously helping some people, or the Lord was helping people through me.
Hmm.
I was dealing with veterans and war veterans and civilians and retirees. And I was, I like to give all glory and honor to God. One of the mottos in my course is you decide how you live your life, but you don't give yourself life.
Mm,
So no matter what decision I make or what good I
right.
do, if I didn't have the life to do it, I couldn't do it. So
Right.
anything that I do, I got to give God the glory for.
That's
Just
right.
like the good book says, whether you eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God.
Right.
So when I talk about something that I might have done, just know that all glory and honor is given to God. It's not me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for the year and a half I had it, Doc, oh my gosh, people were being healed of things. And I didn't even tell anybody but the individual I was working with because I was so astonished
Yeah.
what was happening myself. Then COVID hit. I had my wellness center for about a year and a half, Dr. Green, and then COVID hit. And I was like, well, no, and then of course nobody could go to anything. I had to close
Right.
down my wellness center. But God is so good because if I would have if I would have continued to do that, Dr. Green, my kids were at pivotal ages where they actually needed me more, my son and my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually a good thing for me because it put me back in my house more than what I was, in those preteen years for my
Yeah.
kids. And I know that nothing happens by coincidence. That's disrespectful to God to even say that. So I knew that it happened for a reason. But yeah, I had to close my wellness center. Um, and then that's when I began to write my book on spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
About 4 months into COVID, my daughter, daughters are usually like daddies. So my daughter, and I'm very blessed because I have two wonderful kids. Oh my goodness. I'm blessed. I think God blessed me because of my experience. He's like, okay, let me make this a little bit easier for
Yeah.
Jesse.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly what he had in mind.
Yes. I have a fantastic wife. She's half American, half German. Her dad's from Chicago. She's actually a preschool principal. Like she has 175 kids in this humongous preschool. So she knows how to raise children very well. So her and I together, being such active parents really helped when it came to my kids. And I've always talked with my kids when it comes to God, about the Lord, of course, obviously. I told my wife, um, I'm not going to create strong men and women outside of my house and then not give it to my children.
That's right.
That I'm not going to do that. So I spent a lot of times in their preteen years and those single digit years reading child's Bibles, talking to them it more in depth about the stories in the Bible, reading Bible verses, reading the Bible at the dinner table, having discussions with them for 30, 45 minutes after
Mm-hmm.
bedtime, just talking about life and how to associate it with God. And so my daughter and my son, but my daughter especially, she's like me. She's an inspirer. She's a motivator. I'll give you an example. She was in high school a few years ago and she was dealing with a young man who didn't have a good relationship with his mother and did
Mm-hmm.
not like his father. After 6 months of friendship with my daughter, him and his mother became very stronger and he was telling his father that I love you.
Wow.
And and I'm not trying to speak up my daughter. She just has
Sure.
this way of inspiring and sort of bringing people back together. And why am I telling you that? Because my spirituality book started as a father-daughter thing because she came up to me and she was like, Papa, everybody's asking me, what's your religion and how do you know this stuff, Stella? Where did you get all this information from? And she would be
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I'm Christian, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
Christian, but you know what I mean? Because of course, we're Christian, but unfortunately, most preachers are preaching Jesus, but they're not preaching what Jesus preached.
Right.
And it's sort of unfortunate,
Yeah.
because it's it's degraded Christianity on a whole, and I think the separation of church and state was a bad thing, personally, because
Mm-hmm.
I think we are spirits having a human experience. God created us in his image and his likeness, and he gave us his spirit, and then he gave us rulership and dominion, which means
Mm-hmm.
we're supposed to be ruling this earth with his spiritual values.
Mm.
So that's why I said we're Christian, but we're not, because it's hard to claim Christianity because of the state that it's in. Not talking bad about anybody. I love everybody. But in Leviticus 19:2, God said, be holy, for I, the Lord thy God, am holy. He didn't say be this denomination. He didn't say
Right.
be that denomination. He
Right.
said be holy.
Be holy.
Jesus said, be ye perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect. Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom and his righteousness, perfection, holiness. That's what we're supposed to be aspiring to. That's what I taught my daughter. That's why she would tell people, well, I'm Christian, but my dad gave me some extra. So I
Mm-hmm.
told her, I was like, okay, Stella, let's do this to spend some time together. We're going to talk about a spiritual virtue. And she's an artist. You draw it. We're going to talk about a spiritual virtue, a spiritual characteristics, a spiritual quality, and you draw what we're talking about. So we did that for about 2 months. So we got a little notebook, a draw without any lines in it, and I would draw like some verses and give her some explanation on it, and she would draw the picture that corresponds. And about 2 months into it, I was praying, and the good Lord was like, "No, you need to turn this into a book. You need to
Mm.
continue this." Because I can use this eventually to help people come to me, to understand me more. That's why the name of the book is Spirituality, the Knowledge of God's Presence in the Present.
Right.
Because what we have to realize is that there is nowhere where God is not. God is in the space around us. God is touching our skin right now. God
Yeah.
is not just within us.
Right.
Uh, he declared, "Do I not fill the heavens and the earth?" Heavens, a synonym for heavens, is space. So, and once you understand how close God is, it should help you start to dot your I's and cross your T's a little bit better
Yeah.
because you realize that there's nowhere I cannot hide from God, right? And one of the main themes that I teach through that book is the breath of life, and how all of the great men in the Bible talked about the breath. Moses talked about the breath when he said, God created man from the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Job, whom God himself called one of the most powerful men on the planet, spoke about the breath. Job said, "As long as I have life within me, the
That's right.
breath of God in my nostrils." He said, "The Spirit of the Lord has made me. The breath of the Almighty gives me life."
Yeah.
Isaiah, one of the most powerful prophets, talked about the breath. Jesus blew on them and they received the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Yeah.
Lord has given me a
Mm-hmm.
deeper understanding of the breath. And one of the most powerful verses, and I'm telling you, Doc, I cried for about a week on this when the Lord brought it to me. It's Luke 23:46. This is Jesus's last words. He says, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And once he said this, he breathed his last.
Mm.
So, what did Jesus's physical body stop doing once he gave up the Spirit of God? It stopped breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So, the body only breathes when the Spirit of God is in it. So, if I'm breathing right now, where is the Spirit of God? In me.
Mm.
So, you see what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
that shows me the presence of God in the
In the
present.
present.
So, that's what that book turned into. It turned into a book that, and throughout the verse, a lot of people don't talk about the hundreds of verses that talk about our spirit and our body. And the
Mm-hmm.
dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. The Bible tells us over and over again, you are a spirit in a physical body. And I'm
Yeah.
not even going to talk about the soul. That's just the medium. You are, and that spirit is directly connected with God, like a sun ray is connected to the sun. Think
Mm-hmm.
about that. There's no disconnection with
Mm-hmm.
God.
Mm-hmm.
He is ever present.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a lot of verses in there that tell about the spirit self and the physical self, and then I put verses in there that tells you that God does not dwell in houses made by men.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the church, but God is not in that wood and cement.
Mm-hmm.
He's there when you go there, but he's not. And then to end of me to my rambling, part of the book I speak about religion. And I tell people what the root of the word religion is. If you look at the root of the word religion, it's a Latin word. And the first part of religion, we know what that means, is to go back to or to do
Right.
again. And ligion in Latin is ligare, and that means to bind, to connect or to join to something. So
Mm.
religion really means to rejoin, rebind, or reconnect with something. And I'm sorry, but the good Lord does not want you to necessarily rebind, rejoin, or reconnect with an institution. He wants you to rebind, rejoin, reconnect the spirit he gave you back with him.
That's right.
In the book of James, it says, God yearns for the spirit he put in us. So that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to give our spirit back to God. That's why you're supposed to be saved. You're supposed to die to the physical so you can live in the spiritual. That's what it means to be saved. It means that you are no longer a fleshy man. You are now a spiritual man. You are
Hmm.
now a new man. And that same spirit that you're born with is the same spirit that rose Jesus from the dead. We need to know we are the joint heirs. Jesus said, those who do God's will are my brother, sister, and mother. That in itself is a powerful statement. So hold on. All I got to do is God's will, and I'm considered Jesus's brother.
Hmm.
And I'm not taking anything away from the divinity of Jesus,
Right.
and I'm not putting us on Jesus's level in no way, shape, or form. But so that's a lot of the stuff that I put in that book, Spirituality. So I hope I answered those
Wow.
questions.
Oh no, you definitely answered it. And I think it's so obedient of you to do what he asked you to do in those moments. I mean, he basically gave you assignments to do and you fulfilled those things to do his will on earth. So for you to have followed his word and to be obedient to it, I think is important to also acknowledge. The fact that you did go forth and you did what he wanted you to do. He laid it on your heart to do it and you produced it, you know? And I think a lot of times people right out the bat just kind of struggle just to kind of be obedient to it,
Yes,
to do
sir. I
what,
did too, sir. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
but you did it. And I think that's also something to glean from what you just shared with us because you experienced those things to put it on paper, to put it out for the masses to also garner the same inspiration from. So
Yes, sir.
that's
I hope
amazing.
that was the
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now, we're into where you are presently.
Yes,
And so
sir.
I would love for you just to kind of share with what you're doing now and
Yes, sir.
just kind of lay it out to the people.
Okay, well, I finished my book and I believe it was 2021 or 2022. I'm not
Hmm.
quite sure. Um, Somewhere around there. And I created a nonprofit organization, which was a task in itself, called the TCT Network. And
Hmm.
TCT stands for Tell the Children the Truth. And it's a youth network for boys 18 and under, where I give them a lot of the teachings that I've been giving adults. And then I also have a group of 30 male mentors. So I just don't give them information. I actually connect them with a mentor that
Hmm.
talks to them on a weekly basis. Young men that need support, need help, need guidance. And just because you have a father doesn't mean you don't need a mentor. It takes a village to raise a child. So I created that nonprofit organization. And then Dr. Green, oh my goodness, I took like a year uh, doing grant applications and trying to get money for it because I wanted to do
Hmm.
these 2-day workshops where I give them these 6 hours of amazing stuff and give them a fitness outfit, a suit, give them books, teach them all this wonderful stuff, hook them up with mentors. And after about a year of writing grants, I should have prayed. I should have, because God wants you to be specific. He says, when you come to me, come boldly. You're my
That's right.
son, so come boldly when you come. So I asked God specifically, Lord, I know this is your will. How do I fund this? I can't do it with my federal wage. I can't do it with my very minimal book sales. I can't fund this organization. So that's when God told me social media. And then I asked God social media, and I was like, okay, I have avoided social media. Dr. Green, I'm 47. I just now got on social media. I just now opened up my YouTube. I just now got a TikTok. In the
Hmm.
last 3 years, I've shot videos. I had to teach myself how to shoot videos, how to edit. I'm just now doing this. And I tried to avoid it for 2 decades. But the good Lord said, Jesse, I want you to fund this. I don't want you to have to go through anybody to be in anybody's pocket. I want you to fund it. So that drove me. The Lord told me social media or the internet basically. So I was like, well, what can I do on the internet? So I decided to take all of the knowledge that I've learned since 2002 and to combine it to an online course that covers every aspect of an individual's being. So from 2023 into 2022 till about a month ago,
Hmm.
it took me like 3 years to put together what's called Self Mastery 360. It's called the Self Mastery 360 course. It's a 31-day course that helps you become the best you in every aspect of your being. It covers from fitness, like I said, nutrition, mental
Hmm.
empowerment, emotional intelligence, all the way up to spirituality and your connection with God. So, and that's a heavy part of my course. Yeah, there's fitness in there, cool stuff, mind body exercise. I actually teach you how to get high on your own supply, Dr. Green. And that sounds
Hmm.
crazy to people, but people don't know that you can utilize your breath and force your brain to produce feel good hormones, neurotransmitters, endorphins that are actually the same opiates that you would get from a doctor.
Wow.
So that's just the truth of the matter. Deep breathing, it massages your cranial nerve, and that cranial nerve sends signals to your brain. And your brain is a chemical producing factory. So you can actually force your brain to produce certain feel good hormones. It's the same thing when we perceive something as a stressor. We force our brain to tell our body to produce adrenaline and cortisol. There's the opposite. That's the stress response, right? Well, there's an
Hmm.
opposite to the stress response called the relaxation response. And you can actually activate the relaxation response like you activate the stress response. So those are some of the things that I teach people in the course. It's not just, of course, you know, understanding you're a spiritual being, you're directly connected to God. There's a heavy emphasis on it, but I also teach you how to set your mental and emotional dials in the morning so you can win your entire day. I help you learn how to win the first 5 minutes of your day so you can win your entire day because you can actually set your mental and emotional dials. It's a 3 to 5 minute process, very simple. Once you've done it habitually for 21 days, you don't even have to think about how to do it. You can just sit there and do it automatically. That's called grow your gratitude, or I call it vitamin G. Some
Hmm.
holistic, people call it vitamin G. So I teach a plethora of things in this course that help you in so many different ways. That's why it took me almost 3 years to put together because I created instructional videos for everything because I didn't want people to have any questions.
Hmm.
And I have two different levels. I have a tier 2 level where you can have me for on an app where you can message me 24/7. So I actually help you through the course through messaging. You can ask me any question and I'll answer your questions as you're going through the course. And I have a higher tier where you can actually get me twice a week on Zoom and you have access to me through the 24-hour messaging. So that's what I've been doing, Doc. I created this course. I had to almost videograph everything that I've been teaching over the years. And I'm telling you, Doc, negativity was trying to stop me from the beginning.
I'm sure. Yes.
And
Yes.
one more on that, I have nerve damage um, from my Army times, and it flares up at times. In the last 3 years, I was actually out of work 6 months because my chronic pain elevated exponentially. And I had to go through a process of retraining my brain to stop the nerve damage.
Hmm.
So in that process, I still had to deal with some hard stuff just to get through it. But I tell my kids, you got to kill me to stop me. And you
Yeah,
got to go through God to do that.
that's
So,
right. That's right. That's
so
right. Wow. Well, that sounds like such an amazing feat to accomplish, um, to encompass all of those different areas all into just like this one platform. That sounds Really amazing. I know you're going to share with us how individuals can start that process, and I'll get that from you shortly.
Yes, sir.
But just in the process of all of this, and I want you to kind of think about this question that I'm asking. Um, what's one word that personifies who you are?
I it's got to be two, Doc.
That's
I'm
fine.
sorry for calling you Doc. I'm
It's
sorry. I
fine. It's
shortened up
fine.
things.
That's
Um,
it's good.
and it either be I'll pick two words, and both of them are two words. Kingdom citizen.
Mm,
I'm a kingdom citizen. I am, the Bible says, you are no longer foreigners or strangers, but fellow citizens with God's people and members of his household. I'm a kingdom citizen. Jesus said, seek ye first. Our
hmm
Lord and Savior said, seek first the
hmm
kingdom of God. He didn't say seek it second. He said, seek it first. And then when his disciples asked, how do we pray? He said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It is our job to help reestablish God's kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. So I'm a kingdom citizen and I'm a son of God. Those are my those are my key words. And that's what I help people understand what they are. That's one of my main missions is to let them know that you are not just the flesh. Your body is from the US.
hmm
Your physical, that's your
Right.
physical body. That's the vehicle, that's the avatar. That that's how the spirit experiences life in this dimension.
Right.
God had to make a natural being of this third dimension for his spirit to come into, and we get caught up on our body. That's why we are into physicality. That's why we're into so much materiality. That's why our lower self is running us, our stomach is running us, our inner that's why so many things are running us. And none of those things are bad, Doc. It's not bad. It's nothing wrong with having sex. There's nothing wrong with eating. There's nothing
hmm
wrong with entertainment. But when you need those things, and you put them in front of God and that's all you live for, it takes you away from your true self. So I'm a kingdom citizen, and that's what I want people to know they are, that you're a citizen within God's kingdom. You're a spirit being. I want them to know you're directly connected to God like a sun ray is connected to the sun. Think about that. Have you ever seen a sun ray burst through a cloud? You've seen a sun ray before. What is that sun ray connected to? The sun. What is the source of that sun ray? The sun. Without the sun, that sun ray wouldn't be there.
That's
It's the
right.
same with the spirit that gives life to this body. It's directly connected with the God of everything that exists or has exists, and there's no disconnection with it. And that's why I made that book, Spirituality, the Knowledge of God's Presence in the Present, because that's something that I feel the Lord wants me to share with people. Because I feel once you understand your spirit self, which is your true self, everything else sort of comes into line. You become more
Mhm.
emotionally stronger, more mentally stronger. You have more discipline, more self motivation, more self inspiration.
You said it all. Mr. Jesse Dayton, thank you so very much for coming on and sharing so much of yourself and the good work that you are doing here on Earth. I know that somebody definitely needed to hear not just your background, but your perspective and how, your work on Earth as a kingdom citizen has been so extremely fulfilling and so much part of the will that God has set forth for you to have here. So thank you again for sharing all of that. And as you mentioned with your platform, tell us how we can tap into your latest feat that you spent over 3 years accomplishing and creating. How can individuals get in contact with you and also with that platform?
Yes, sir. Well, I emailed you like 5 minutes
hmm
before we started, so I know you just got it. I emailed you the link to my landing page where
Yep.
they can get more information about my course, exactly what you're going to go through. There's links on there to join the course. There's also a link on there for a discovery call if you have any more questions, and it's a 15 to 20-minute discovery call, because I don't want people to join something or spend money on something that I don't want anybody wasting their money.
Right.
And I need people to know it's a no joke. It's a serious life-changing course. So this 31 days is very important if you put yourself into it. So you have the links, Doc. Hopefully you'll add them, into
I
the
will
feed or the
definitely.
description.
Yes.
You can check me out on YouTube. I just created a YouTube page about 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, and I uploaded some videos on there that gives people a sort of a hint. um, Please forgive me for not being so technologically
It's
proficient with
fine.
my videograph.
It's okay. It's all right. It's okay.
Hopefully
It
they
took
enjoy
it.
the information. I'm getting better as I go.
Yeah, yeah. It took you a while to even get on social media. You talked about it.
Yes,
It's fine.
sir.
I think the people understand that. It's fine. It's okay.
Yes,
It's
sir.
okay. But I will
So the name
definitely
of
add those links. I did receive those, and you'll be able to see those right under the video. So please, if you are interested, please check those out. And for anybody that's watching, please make sure that you come back and watch us again. You can watch this episode and other episodes of the show on my YouTube page, share it all across social media if you feel the need to do that. But in the meantime, I want you all to enjoy the rest of your day. Come back and visit us again. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day.